My Hero Academia: Heroes Rising is the second My Hero Academia movie, which I'm forever doomed to confuse with the first movie, Two Heroes, because that one has the word two in the title, despite being the first movie, whereas this one is centered around the rivalry between its two leading heroes. And the first one is about a bunch of heroes rising through a skyscraper that has been overtaken by terrorists. Also, I now realise that editing this video is going to be a fucking nightmare because this isn't available on the internet yet, and I have no screen caps or manga to lazily pan across, so small F in the chat for me. Anyway, long-running Battle Shonen adaptation spin-off movies have a number of inherent limitations caused by the very nature of their existence. This is because they're attached to an adaptation, but their original works, functionally, they're filler arcs, and because of that they can't do anything that would change the status quo, and any sense of genuine peril to said status quo loses all tension as a result of this. The first movie knew this very well, essentially being as much of a fan service movie as it could manage, and it focused on fun character moments and fun action sequences, and it framed all this fun around a story theme that not only builds on, but also improves the lore of the My Hero Academia universe. Ultimately, it's one of my favourite movies of its kind. This movie does not fare as well. A lot of this movie centres around its villain, Nine, who's a much more present threat than the villain of the first movie, whom, despite my near-encyclopedic knowledge of this franchise, I can barely remember the appearance of, let alone their name. And this is despite me having recently rewatched the first movie in preparation for the second. Nine is essentially Tesco's own brand all for one, being able to steal up to 9 quirks, hence the name. While he's somewhat generic, he works fine within the context of the movie, and he's an active agent in the plot and a plausible threat, so that's a step up from the first one, but then what isn't? This movie's best accomplishment is getting all of Class 1A to be relevant and actually have something to do, some of whom have their best fights in the franchise here against Nine and his subordinates here being the fusion of Tamaki and Jirota, this guy whose design and quirk are cool enough that he's wasted on this movie, and Jessie from Pokemon. And this movie really does go all out on these action sequences, not only having some of the franchise's best animation, but also some of its best choreography. The coordinated team attacks by the members of Class 1A are the highlights here, and they really do give some of the less powerful class members a chance to do something useful, which is a really nice change. But this whole thing is accomplished through a very awkward logical leap in its premise. The premise being that the entire class has been abandoned with no supervision on an isolated island that has no other superheroes on it. Because, it's not like anything bad has ever happened from the students leaving the school grounds. I'm sure they'll be fine. Just abandon them on this fucking island with no support whatsoever, totally at the mercy of any villain who decides to come and fuck their shit up. Sounds good to me. Now, being that this is for some reason set a lot later in the manga than where the anime has currently adapted up to at the time of release, which I think was a decision that they made specifically to spite the anime-only fans, and to spoil a bunch of things for them and ruin their days. And also to get everyone who went to go see this movie with me at the cinema to ask me a bunch of questions after the film, because none of them had read the manga. So, if that was what you were going for, Bones, you've definitely succeeded. Anyway, because of all that, you could probably chalk this whole thing up to the Hero Commission knowing that the League are biding their time until spring. But that is still a pretty significant stretch. There's going to be some big-ass spoilers from here on out, so consider yourself warned. The biggest development in this movie, the big talking point, the ultimate thing most people will take away from this, is the twist in the final battle, wherein the seemingly undefeatable Nine is taken down by Deku transferring One for All to Bakugo, and the two of them using it in tandem. While it doesn't really drive the plot the same way the first movie's theme did, the main theme of this movie is the rivalry between Deku and Bakugo. And this is not only an inspired solution to an otherwise unwinnable battle, it also resonates excellently with the main motif of the movie. Unfortunately, it absolutely does not stick the landing. Being that the status quo absolutely cannot be changed by this movie, It's obvious that One For All had to go back to Deku in the end. However, the way this was accomplished was incredibly ham-fisted. The excuse they give is that Bakugo passed out before it could transfer, which makes no sense, given especially that he was still able to use it immediately. Also, he was able to use it immediately? That in of itself is really something that strains the suspension of disbelief. Or, I mean, there was also the other suggestion that they imply that maybe it was just the will of One For All itself. Or something. Which is just a tremendously cheap cop-out. It's left intentionally vague exactly why it didn't transfer fully, but either answer is insultingly bad. And it's made even worse by just how obvious the best solution to this whole conundrum really was. Bakugo should have voluntarily returned the quirk. This would have been a much more logical resolution. Admittedly, they would have had to hand-wave why Bakugo's quirk wouldn't transfer along with it, but that's much easier to sell than what they actually did. And this would also have been an excellent way to resolve the character drama between these two throughout the movie. And it would have been, a much better way to do that than, hang on, let's see, what did they actually do? What did they do to resolve? Oh yeah, they had Bakugo forget the entire thing happened. Ugh. The tension in the final battle is also undermined by the characters repeatedly receiving major injuries that are just totally forgotten about, and they vanish entirely. Like Deku gets shot through the fucking stomach, heals up immediately, clothes and all. This goes against what I've always considered to be one of my favourite things about My Hero Academia, one of its great strengths, especially early on, that despite having some degree of artistic license, the battle damage taken is generally very realistic and permanent, and that actions have consequences. I mean, I doubt that we'll ever see Mina's thigh again, which is the only other wound that's likely to leave a permanent scar, but it's Horikoshi, so who knows. Ultimately, the problem that I have with this movie is that the tension is irrelevant for anything that you know will go back to normal in this kind of movie, and that in order for it to work, the plot has to resonate on an emotional level, and that despite landing that in some places, broadly it doesn't. If you're like me and you're a big fan of My Hero Academia, you'll still enjoy this movie, which I did. For all its flaws, I did have fun watching this. But if you're not invested enough in all the characters to care about their side stories, odds are this movie will not do anything for you. Also, Hawks is here. He doesn't do anything, but he's here. And that's good enough, because Hawks is the best character and I love him. And I will be very sad when he inevitably dies. Well, I've been Lind, and this was My Hero Academia. Heroes Rising. Fuck. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.